Hey you guys, welcome back to the Doug and Racecraft YouTube channel. On this episode, I show you how to narrow a 9-inch and build a 9-inch Ford for under $1,000. Okay, so before we get into it, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you guys a couple things about this really quick. This is a 9-inch Ford housing out of a 72 Mustang. Really doesn't matter what housing you use because you're going to be lopping the ends off it anyways. Just make sure it's a 9-inch and not 9 3/4, but that still wouldn't matter for this scenario here. We're using Speedway 31 spline cut to fit axles. Those were $300 for the set. Picked up this rear end housing complete with drum brakes, third member completely assembled, for $150. Picked up a set of gears from Summit Racing for $150, 411s, a back brace / truss, and a disc brake kit from Quick Performance, and we'll show you how to install them. Alright guys, so as you can see, got the rear end out of the car. I have it torn down basically all the way. I have my 4-link brackets on it right here. Like I said before, I have a parallel bar 4-link in this car right now. The first thing we're going to do here, we're going to go ahead and lop these ends off, weld on new ends. I have new bearing ends that we're going to go ahead and put on to narrow this axle. I have Mosier housing ends. They're big Ford Torino style housing ends because that's what most brake kits will end up using, is that big style Torino end. For now, what I'm going to go ahead and use is the Quick Performance bolt-on 11-inch disc brake kit. It uses the geometric calipers, which ironically is the exact same caliper I have on the front of the car. So I'll have the same calipers on all 4 corners. Even though I am narrowing it, I am still going to use the stock wheel tubs. The only reason we're narrowing it is because those wheels have only 4.5 inches of back spacing for a 10-inch wheel. Just some things to keep in mind when if you're going to go ahead and do this yourself. This is a pretty straightforward process, but there's a lot of things you can mess up. I've been thinking about this for the last couple weeks now, thinking about everything that could possibly go wrong, because it usually does. There's a lot of platform specific stuff that you need to remember. This 9-inch does have a centered pinion. Another thing to keep in mind is the thickness of your housing end. And when I say that, this is my new housing end that I have here. When I say thickness, I mean the side thickness of it, how much room it actually takes up on the housing. So this one measures, I think it's like 2 inches, 2 5/8 of an inch. Whereas the stock ones, they're less than an inch. So when you're making your measurements to cut, you need to take this thickness into account, because if you were to just cut off, if you measure from the end of the housing in, right now I'm gonna narrow this 2 1/4 from each end I'm gonna cut off. If you were just to measure from this end and cut off 2 1/4, that wouldn't even be enough to account for the thickness of this. So your housing would effectively be wider than it was before. As you notice here, I do have an ICT bracket. This bracket's like literally $20, and you shouldn't be doing this without having this bracket. It gives you where the pinion center line is, so you can measure to side, so you can get a measurement there. That's not why I'm gonna use it. I use it because this open block here, that tells you where you need to cut the axles, which makes this 10 times easier. You don't have to pull the axles in and out 10 times. Trimming them on down to get them to fit. So Mittler Brothers kit is, I think it's like $700, and it comes with the long rod that goes through the bearing blocks for the carrier and everything like that. I made my own kit for, I think it was under $250 that I spent. I got a machined rod from Grainger. The rod itself was like $75, and then it was $50 to ship it here. And then I got the blocks that go in here that have the 1/2 inch and 1/4 hole that the rod will go through and keep everything true. So those bearing blocks I think were $125 on eBay. In my opinion, that's the right way to do this. There's a lot of people on YouTube that didn't do it that way, and it worked out fine for them. But that's the way we're gonna do it here. So now we got that out of the way, let's go ahead and start cutting some shit up. So I don't know if you can see this here, but I went ahead and measured and scribed a line right here for the thickness of this housing end. So this is, if I were to keep this housing the same width, that would account for this here. So if I were to cut it there, weld this on, it would be the same width as it is now. So then from that line, I measured the 2 1/4 that I'm gonna go ahead and narrow this, and scribed another line. So this is where I need to cut. If I weld that on there, then we are 4.5 inches narrower than we were before, which is what we're going for here. Okay, so I used some blue 2-inch painter's tape, taped around my line, and then cut away from it a smidge, and then came in with a flat disc, cleaned it up basically all the way to the tape. The only downside to using something like this for this type of application is that if you get this tube too hot, the glue on the tape will start to melt, so you'll lose your line. Luckily in this situation that didn't happen, so I'm gonna go ahead and get the third member plopped in and we'll put the rod through it. So we got our third member in, our rod slid through, so just a quick refresher. Got those two bearing blocks and the carrier in the center, obviously, so that holds the shaft. So what this is here, this is another bearing block right here. So this end here is for a big Ford, whether it be the old style or new style, and then the other side here is for a small bearing. If you're gonna narrow and reuse your factory ends, like the other bearing ends that I had, those were small Ford ends. If you're gonna reuse those, you could do this. I actually cut this pretty close to square, surprisingly. The way this works, you have a lock ring, as seen here. This slides on the end. So I don't have the rear end clocked and angled right, so this is just purely semantics. So this comes on here, and this is a near perfect fit. This sits on here on its own, so this doesn't want to like fall off or anything. It doesn't want to sag. So then you go ahead and push this in like that. And then to hold it in, you take this lock ring in, push it in, do the same thing on the other end, tighten that up. I am going to come in here and put a bevel on this tube just so you get a nice good weld in there. So there's nothing to it but to do it. Okay, so as you can see, you got the housing end tacked on. Maybe a little bit more than a tack. We'll call it a jazzed up tack. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but this, it ended up being that this housing is a little bit bent, which isn't out of the ordinary for these, especially for a used one, especially one coming from a Mustang. They are bent forward, so both axle tubes are pushed forward, which is from when the wheels hook up. The tubes aren't strong enough to withstand that force sometimes, and they pull forward. Not the end of the world. I actually did get a back brace for this as well, and that's going to be how I'm going to fix that. It doesn't really matter. You'd be surprised. I mean, the rear end in your car, unless you bought a brand new, is probably also twisted. Like I said, not the end of the world. So when I put this back brace on, what happens is when the welds cool down on that back brace, it wants to pull these tubes back anyways. So I'm going to go ahead and use that to my advantage because I don't have a way to straighten this out otherwise. In all reality, straightening this out is just for semantics anyways, because as long as the housing end meets the tube on all sides and makes full contact all the way around, it really doesn't matter. But I am gonna go ahead and cut these welds back out, put the brace back on, and then weld the housing ends back on. Okay, so I did forget to film anything before I put the rear end back in the car, but here it is. As I said, we went ahead and put a back brace on it. I welded the back brace up before I welded the housing ends up, just in case housing ends did flex at all. I could account for it here with the shaft going through. It doesn't really matter if the shaft isn't, or if the tube isn't exactly lined up with the axle end, just so long as it's making full contact all the way around, it doesn't really matter. So we also got our Quick Performance disc brake kit on here. Just bolts on to, it replaces your retaining bracket, so it retains the axle as well as holds the caliper on. So here's the caliper bracket, these 4 bolts here, and these 2 bolts for the caliper. So just GM metric calipers front and back. Same thing on the other side, as you can see. Got our nifty 4-link brackets and everything on here. Like I said, we have 411s with 31 spline axles, mini spool for now until I can replace it with a true track or track lock, something along those lines eventually. But for now, it doesn't have to be right, just has to be done. I will have to go ahead and get new springs because these springs aren't holding nearly enough weight. I think full extension of these shocks is 6 inches. And right now they're down to about 1 inch, almost collapsed. So these are 125-pound springs, so I'll have to upgrade those before we go to and drive this for the first time. Also got a fill and a drain, which will be really nice for, you know, obviously filling and draining it, because the downside to using a 9-inch, you can't drain the rear end without basically taking the third member out, which the axles have to come out. To change the oil, basically you got to pull both axles out, pull the brakes off and everything, pull the third member, which is always a huge pain. But now all I got to do is loosen this little girl up and she'll drain. So I also got the fill up top, just generic fills and drains from Amazon. I think they were 15 bucks a piece, so a very worthy investment there. So let's go and wrap this video up. So we're gonna wrap this video up here. I'm gonna keep it pretty short. From what I've seen with my viewer counts, the videos that are longer and more technical usually don't get that many views. So from here on out, we're gonna go ahead and just keep the video shorter, more of an overview kind of thing, because people just don't seem to be interested in the like how-to aspects of how to do something like this, which I can understand 100%. So that's just how everything's gonna be from here on out. With having to do this video, I think this came out really nice. You know, to buy a complete, done, assembled rear end and everything, you're looking at least $3,000 probably for the gears and everything that you want. And I built this for right around $1,000. I picked the rear end up for 150 bucks. Like I said, it was a Mustang housing. Picked the 9-inch Ford bearing ends up for $100. Axles were 300 bucks. Brakes were 300 bucks. Back brace is like $35 for Quick Performance as well. So I mean, that's cheap and easy. It is easy, but it is very detail oriented, so you do have to be careful if this is something you're going to tackle on your own. If you do have any questions, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Like the video if you like the video. But that's going to do it for this video, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Y'all take care now.